today we're supposed to be talking about how it feels after Vipassana and the whole experience a little bit, to share what it was like and what I got out of it. And there's actually less and less to say the more you get out of it, in a way, because you're just enjoying the silence and the stillness. So it's now been 4 or 5 days, something like that, since the end of the course. So coming back to reality a little bit, trying to find still just like places like this that are super remote and calm and the energy's good, just kind of maintain that peace. And yeah, it was it was a lot of things hard to put into words. And I think, like I shared in the before video, wanting some break from reality to just like look inside and see what's driving everything. You're put into a place where you really don't have any control, and so it's like it's a real challenge for control freaks or people that use a lot of freedom in that sense of controlling their environment. And the more and more that's taken away from you in that way, it also teaches you about like what's driving you, like the whole idea of the experience is to kind of be able to sit and observe your consciousness as it's like how the mind is reacting to events. So you have like any number of things that happen to you in a day, and it's how you're reacting to it, and also how your own consciousness is like seeking pleasure or avoiding pain. So it's like cravings and aversions. And a lot of the time these things are so automatic in the programming of how you're trying to like live your life or your day. And so you kind of create this world of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And some of this craving and aversion is like a natural biological thing for sure. So it's not like all cravings are bad, but it's more like when you need it to feel something you don't already have in yourself. So it's like some sense of like something's missing, and you're looking for that happiness or that love or something from something else. And so I think, I hadn't realized how much of that behavior it's in all of us, but to really sit with it in yourself. And so in that 10 days, you're put through like a series of, let's say, events or sequence of things that will trigger those things in your awareness. And so the first thing is you're sitting for like 10 hours a day, cross-legged, and so that type of that type of experience is going to cause a lot of pain, like physical pain, if you're not used to sitting in that way and just being still. And it's actually using that pain, observing that pain, to see how much you try and avoid pain in your life, and just sitting with the pain and moving through the pain, you realize it's not like you transcend pain, but you start to have a different relationship with it, and you can start to notice what it's showing. It's feedback of some kind of tension, some kind of resistance, some kind of blocked energy in you somewhere, and then your body wants to always get away from that. It's like you want to escape that, so you're basically forced to sit there and there's no escape. And you try and go to your room, the teachers will come and pull you back into the hall, and so there's really no many games to get out of this. And you're sitting there and it's uncomfortable. It's like in India, it's super hot, there's no AC. And so it goes on and on like this for 10 days. And I think, the first 2 or 3 days kind of breaks you through the physical pain. That's the first kind of lesson. And when you reach that point, like the mind almost has like a panic attack of like, get me out of here, so lots of people maybe leave in that 2-3 days because they don't want to go through that pain and sit with it. And so for me it was especially painful. And I really didn't like it. My mind was trying to invent all kinds of ways of getting out, and there's many things out of your control. So you're in a dorm with a bunch of other people, you can hear people snoring, you're not getting any sleep, you're getting up at 3 a.m, people's alarm clocks going off. It's like you're in an environment where all your needs are not being met. What you perceive as your needs in your normal life are not being met and they're being taken away. So it's like, take away your sleep, how you doing now, motherfucker? It's like all in every different area of life, more and more is taken away. And the food also, it's super simple, it's not what I'm used to eting. So it's like, okay, now with no food, how you doing? So it's like, in that misery and that pain and suffering, you realize how much that you're creating with your own kind of cravings and aversions, versus just to surrender to an environment. So it's like being in a prison, and you just have to kind of surrender to that experience, and in that you find peace, and that's kind of what Goenka talks about. This like perfect equanimity is like in a situation you don't control, like, how do you react to events and things you don't like, and what does that teach you about what your conscience actually is underneath all that kind of programming. So that's the overall kind of lesson. And when you sit with the pain, you start to get very present. You're putting your awareness into different points of the body. So it teaches you how to pay attention to the breath, and basically using that respiration to focus awareness. So you're concentrating your awareness on one point on the nose, and then seeing how long you can sit with that and how long you can be present, and then the mind wanders off, and then you come back, so you're not trying to punish yourself when the mind wanders, but it's just constantly catching it and coming back, catching it and coming back. And so trying to maintain that type of focus while you're in a lot of pain is like stretching you in just a lot of ways, and it's super tiring, super demanding. Like you just get cranky and irritable, and you got no one to complain to because you can't talk, so it's like you just got to deal with all of it and just get through it. And the first time for me, going through that kind of experience. So I think in that 3 days, the physical pain was the hardest part. And then once you get past the extreme physical pain, it kind of subsides, and it's still always kind of there. But the mind has a bit more peace, and it's not like being stressed out all the time. And so then you're a bit more still, and you can go deeper and deeper, and you just have more and more presence almost. And whatever that pain was also then opened up, the energy that was blocked kind of opened up. So whatever needs to be healed can be healed, and the pain is always just that kind of feedback of something to pay attention to. So for me, in like my hip, I think it's always been super tight, and that's where I felt a lot of pain in cross-legged positions. I couldn't really sit for long periods of time. And that inability to sit and rest, it also exhibits in like mental behaviors. So like this restlessness, this impatience, this impulsivity of like constantly needing to get up and go and do something because you just can't sit still. Sitting with the physical pain also shows you the mental, side of your behavior, your programming, your desires, your needs, all the things that are normally driving so much of your behavior. And so once you get past the physical pain, you're actually sitting with, like, for me, I would just say it's like boredom. And normally I don't experience boredom because I'm like a super curious person. I've always got things I want to be learning, trying, doing. And again, there's all kind of impulses, you want to try new things, go here, travel. And so when you have a lot of freedom in your time, in your life, you can create endless things to do with it, and it's not like anything that's bad, but it's like if you're using that in a way and you're not able to sit still, then you're kind of missing something as well. So the boredom, the way that I kind of saw it was, and Goenka talks about this every night, there's like a talk by the guy who created Vipassana, and he kind of talks to the philosophy and the experience that people have, and he kind of uses humor. So each time you're kind of really frustrated at the end of the day, you kind of watch the talk, and it kind of just gives you enough to get through the next day. And so you're really just looking at it like that, like one day after another, not trying to think, oh my god, 10 days or how many days to go. You're just trying to really be present and just like get the lesson from that day. And every day you get a little glimpse of something, and then that kind of gives you the belief to stick with it for another day and another day to get through it. And the way that he explains the ego or the mind like seeking sensation to find pleasure or something like that is when you don't have that, when that's all stripped away, then it's like the boredom you're experiencing shows you, okay, who's bored exactly? And it's like the ego seeking sensation because it doesn't have that stimulus. There's no internet, there's no woman, there's no food, there's no sleep, there's no nothing. And so in that state you're bored because you're not used to sitting with stillness and peace in your mind, and your mind is running around whatever, trying to create stories about how to get out of here so we can get back to the good life we had. why are you putting me in this prison? And that boredom was actually maybe harder than the physical pain. And so like day 5, 6 was the hardest part of that. And again, like kind of wanted to get out of there, creating reasons why, okay, I've got the lesson of physical pain, I sat through enough pain, I get the lesson, let's get out of here now. But actually there's different lessons. And so once you sit with that boredom and get through that, it's like the awareness of where the boredom's coming from also kind of just, you override that that feeling kind of subsides, because you then get the peace to sit. And when you can really, the download I really got from the whole program is when you can really sit and just exist without need. That's when like purity can enter the mind. So like purity of thought, purity of mind, and in that place the work can kind of begin, to see different layers of yourself, and also like your mission, your purpose, whatever you kind of came here to do. And it's in those moments when it comes in. So normally in the day-to-day there's just so much need coming from somewhere, you can't really sit and get that kind of purity. It's always coming through a filter of need. And a lot of the insights for me was around love and like relationships, and that's just a big theme in my life, like trying to understand that part of my life better, because I spend a lot of time focusing on business and money and freedom in that sense. And then when you have figured out some of those things, and your mind intention goes to like, what is love? How are we looking for love? What are we trying to get from it? And a lot of the time is a lot of love is like, who's noticing my needs? And when your needs are noticed, you feel loved. But when your needs are not noticed, you feel like you're not being loved in some way. So you're looking for someone to kind of notice your needs and see you in that way. But first, if you take a minute to look at your own needs, that's probably the best way to find and accept yourself, at a deeper level. And like a lot of needs will just fall away, and so you realize that maybe the love you're looking for isn't actually the love that that's going to fill you, that's going to like feel good. You need to find that fullness in yourself, and looking at your needs and observing your needs, then all the other ones, all the needs that don't matter kind of fall away, and then you have a much simpler way of kind of looking at life. And then also not looking for love in that way of like filling some kind of need, and then the neediness around love also falls away, the whole feeling of that wanting love in that way. So I think the real purity of love is when you're giving love without needing anything back, and that's like this mythical unconditional love. And I don't know if there is a perfect practical version of that, like the love between a parent and a child is like truly unconditional love, the same way you might have it with your parents, because they gave you so much and you always feel that love and that connection. But the love you get from a partner, if you are still looking for someone to meet your needs, and you haven't really looked at your needs, then this is an endless game and you can't get out of that. So first you have to kind of look and sit with yourself and your own needs, and then you start to look at, okay, how much do I love myself? When all these needs are gone, how good am I? And so this is just like an ongoing layer process. You just peeling back all the layers and layers after 10 days. And all the things you think you needed are gone, like your sleep is gone, your food is gone. And you have less and less control of everything. So there's a lot of acceptance and surrender, basically, and trust that you'll be okay, and trust that you're guided, and trust that there's something higher. When you can't really surrender, that you'll receive that kind of guidance. And I've had definitely moments of that in different parts of my life, through psychedelics, through fasting, through sun gazing, where you feel kind of the ego dissolution in different ways. And so in those moments you feel like real clarity and real presence, and real love and connection. And the ego, when you have a really strong ego, it's constantly creating separation in different ways, because there's all the comparison stuff, there's all the seeking things, and all those things are kind of reinforcing a separation type of consciousness. And so a lot of what I was dealing with in my own life was feeling like alone in some way, like not connected to people, always being in a strange environment, not really having close people I can trust, always being in strange countries. And so always this feeling of not belonging, not being part of society. And so that sort of, for sure, was part of my experience growing up, in a cult and in different places where I wasn't connected to the people, to the culture, and always feeling like an outsider. And I learned a lot in that way of not accepting beliefs and stories that are kind of, programming that drives a lot of other people. But that wound of like separation was always there, and I think that it was always showing up for me also in love. And when you feel that separation, you can't ever get that from love from someone. You first have to look at where that's coming from. And so it's the ego, and the ego is driving all of that, in some way to kind of make you feel safe and find some measure of control or freedom, whatever, it's trying to use to keep you safe, but it's also creating that separation. And when you really have trust and surrender, then that kind of stuff kind of melts away, because it's like a protection or a shield you don't need in the same way. You can kind of trust that you're still good without all that. And then the connection really comes through, the connection to yourself, the connection to everything around you, and like the higher parts of your consciousness that can then start to show you things. And so I think, by day 7, 8, 9, you're kind of getting through some of that, some of that programming or some of that ego dissolving at different layers, and then you're just receiving more and more wisdom. And so like for me, I definitely got some visions, I got some insights, what I call downloads, just different things being shown to me. And coming back to that point is like, when you can sit and exist without need, that's when purity can enter the mind, and that's when all the higher parts of your consciousness can kind of come online, and different channels or different energy in your being is more open. And so finding ways to build that into your life, even after Vipassana, they say you should do an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, but you can sit and take any moment to to find that presence when you have when you have time in your day. And obviously being in a place where, like here, where there's just not a lot to pay attention to, no internet, you can kind of, again, just appreciate the present moment. And then as much of that as you can build into your life, into your day. And I've always used kind of the morning as like time to be outside in nature, time to disconnect. But still, your consciousness is so closely linked, after that to like, okay, business, money, internet, phone. And so, it's like creating enough disconnect for your consciousness to experience like a prolonged period of time where it's not getting the other type of programming, and then the new kind of reality can kind of enter. So that kind of what I said about the purity of mind and purity of thought, to really sit with that. And that's kind of what this last few days has kind of been about, trying to find that peace. And when there's no need, then there's really not a lot to say. There's really not a lot to do. And so it's an interesting point to reflect on and see, okay, so what am I here for exactly? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And other than just to appreciate the moment and then share your energy with other people that you love and care about and who the universe brings to you, So I would love to share the experience with more people that I feel connected to, especially people that maybe depend on your energy. Like a big thing for me is maybe a lot of my self-image and my idea of who I am is based on other people's need of me in some way. Like my energy, my time, my attention is constantly going to, okay, these people need me and how do I take care of them? And so I think, a big part of letting go of my needs is also like looking at those connections, who's attached to your energy and what's the cost of that, on you. And how do you reestablish or recalibrate, that, because all of that has a cost. So if you just want to sit and be still, you don't want those energy cores necessarily always taking in a way that requires you to be, paying attention again to like, okay, I need to make more money to support this, to do this, to do this. And so it's really stripping away other people's needs of you. And then you can decide what version of that feels good to you. And I think, a lot of what came through was also looking like the natural masculine expression of responsibility, of like how men are supposed to take care of like providing for your partner, for your family, for your parents, and all that responsibility that sits with you, and how much of that is the ego and looking for, again, ways to feel good about yourself versus like just serving without, the ego in the way. And that's true service, when you're able to like, that was the message that came through, is like, how do I learn how to serve without a place of ego, without that getting in the way? And so first you have to sit with yourself for long enough to know what that feels like, and then find ways to introduce that into your day. So that's kind of a reflection process I'm going through. It's going to be ongoing, I'm sure, for a while, to like kind of recalibrate to a new normal of what that looks like what energy am I giving of myself in ways that feel good, and also that it's not costing me my peace, my balance, and then how am I looking for needs that are being driven by the ego in some way, of looking for something that's outside of myself, and yeah, being able to disconnect from the regular programming, because anytime you're around other friends or, let's say media, it's always reinforcing that constant need of something, and those needs just kind of build and build and build back into reality, and then suddenly you're back in the same place you were. So I think, yeah, it's not like you get the whole it's not like you get the whole awareness at once, but it's just like glimpses of it, and then you have to kind of practice it. And so that's kind of what I'm working on, let's say. Yeah, so that's a bit about what I want to share, and if I have any more thoughts, I'll be back on camera to share more. So yeah.